Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Joe and Joe Weather Show on this Sunday morning. You starting here at 11:03 Eastern Time with this winter storm that's running through the south and moving up the interior, up and down the East Coast, and we're going to have all the latest goings on, and there's quite a bit going on actually. The Joe and Joe Weather Show brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. The tri-state area's largest provider of, hold on a second, folks, I'm sorry. This is what happens when you run things off your phones. Oh, good Lord.
Turn the volume down, Joe.
I know, I'm trying to get to the volume button, and it's not cooperating. Now I got it. Okay. So anyway, it's Omni True Value Hardware, 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. 631-756-1125 is the phone number. The New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, tri-state area's largest provider of rock salt at the lowest possible prices and anything else you need to keep your home clean and safe after these winter storms. The website is omnitruevalue.com. Yes, .com, Mr. Rayo. Good morning to you. So I'm going to tell you right off the bat, I'm an inch ahead of you. I've already started an inch ahead of you. So it's been a very, it's been a very interesting morning here in North Georgia. Actually, the not just North Georgia, but south of Atlanta too. The overnight. Overnight we had the cold air wedge down, build down the Appalachians. And one of the things that I kind of thought might be the case, but I wanted to see it verified, is that oftentimes with these highs, when they build down from the northeast, the cold air gets further south than advertised. And that's exactly what happened. In fact, it was actually colder south and west of me this morning. So I woke up at about 5 a.m. I had about an inch of snow on the ground, and it was, snowing, nice flakes. And then what happened is the precip stopped. I got it to some kind of, and I guess this has to do with the approaching upper low, some sort of dry hole. It was like a circular dry hole where there was precip all around me, but not over me. So my temperature from there jumped up from 32 to 41. And the wind went from northeast to southeast, so that's why the temperature went up. So that peaked about an hour ago. I've been vacillating right now, last I checked, between 38 and 37. It's actually snowing down to south. It's snowing in Atlanta, and it's also snowing south of Atlanta, which is 100 miles southwest, southwest of me. The Hall County, which is northeast of Atlanta, by not that many miles, by the way. When I was looking at some of the TV video from there has to be every bit of snow-covered roads. It looks like there was at least a couple of inches of snow and ice on the ground. Conditions vary, but the biggest story I think has been not just the snow and ice so far, but the wind. I mean, we had gusts to 40 to 50. I lost my power between 6:30 and 8:30 this morning. But thankfully I got it back. But the winds have taken a lot of trees down. Somebody was asking yesterday on the chat board whether when was the last time Atlanta had a high wind warning, and the answer to that, as it turns out, is 2016. So it's been 6 years, a little less than 6 years. I don't know when it was in 2016, but 2016 was the last time they had a high wind warning, and they've already had gusts of 40 and 50 miles an hour, so definitely justified. But now I'm waiting. The guide says I'm looking out my window. I can see the haze above me, so I would say the snow level is probably about 500 feet above me at the moment, and I'm just waiting for the upper low to come up from the southwest to bring that down, and that should happen within the next couple of hours, and maybe even during the show. So we'll see if that happens.
Well, Joe, I've noticed that on the latest FOOS data for the North American model, the NAM model, that what the FOOS has been doing over the last 24 to 36 hours with each passing primary run is to increase the amount of precipitation that will be hitting LaGuardia Airport during the first 6 hours of this event. For example, a couple of days ago, we were looking at maybe about a 0.30 inches of precip at LaGuardia between 7 o'clock this evening and 1 o'clock Sunday morning. It has now jumped to a half an inch, or just shy of a half an inch, 0.49. So this thing is really, and also the next 6 hour period from 1 o'clock a.m. to 7 o'clock a.m., now up to 1.19. So this thing that is heading in our direction is looking more and more ferocious in terms of precipitation, in terms of intensity. And we are thinking that we are going to be seeing quite a bit of moisture, especially in the after midnight hours. And so we may get that thump. I know we were talking about maybe the lack of a thump. I don't know about anywhere else, but I mean, right up here in Putnam Valley, from what I'm seeing here with these numbers, if this thing gets going the way the Foose is suggesting, we may put down a good 3, 4, 5 inches before we even change over to rain. At least that's the initial. I'm just looking at this now. I haven't had a chance to analyze this.
I'm curious about two things. Well, a couple of things. The T1 at LaGuardia at 7 o'clock this evening.
7 p.m. this evening, it is 99 or
minus
-1 Celsius.
What about the T2?
The T2 is -3. It's 97, and the same for T3.
So
So I mean, we're just below critical at 7 o'clock.
So where are we at 10 o'clock?
They only give it in 6 hours.
6 hours. I'm sorry. So when is it at 1 o'clock?
At 1 o'clock, we have a 547 thickness. We have +4 on the T1, +3 on the T2, and at T5, excuse me, not T2, T3, and at T5, 0. So
it's gone by then.
It's cold. It's cold way aloft, but
right.
But when you get down, forget it. It's done.
So I would say off of that, you could probably extrapolate that at least at LaGuardia, you might have some snow and sleet for an hour, maybe a little bit more than that. But yeah, the further north and west, I did notice off the maps, as I didn't have time to look at the Foose, but I did notice off the maps anyway. I could just because those I can actually see in 3 hour increments. On pivotal weather, that it looked like there's like an extra hour, maybe hour and a half of colder air involved. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not going to make a huge difference because it's still going to get washed away in a lot of areas, particularly along the coast. And I still think most of the immediate coast is going to start out as rain anyhow. But it does maybe add a little bit in terms of the accumulation potential for inland areas. It'll be very interesting to see later this afternoon and this evening just how quickly that east wind or the east-southeast wind, depending on how you look at the isobars, how quickly that warm air comes in and flies up. That's going to be critical, and I've just kind of maintained all along, judging from all of that's going on, it may wind up being faster than advertised, but you know what? We're almost there, so just let her rip and let's see where it takes us.
Now the GFS, the 12Z GFS, is now far enough out so that I can tell you that as of 1 o'clock in the morning, they have the 32-degree line just to the south of Port Jervis and just across the, well, it almost looks like it's right through the Interstate 84 corridor, north of me. So if you were to follow this, the 32-degree line, the freeze line, is already north of me by 1 o'clock in the morning, and that's according to the GFS. Now, let me just very quickly look at, on the mesoscale, the NAM. See, the NAM, as we know, is a little bit cooler or colder than the GFS, and I would say that the NAM is about, maybe 15 miles further south with that line. It looks like the 32-degree line on the NAM is right along the Putnam-Westchester line and maybe about 15 or 20 miles south of Port Jervis. So, if you take a compromise between the two, pretty much it's in my vicinity by 1 a.m. and continuing to move. Let me just quickly look at where it is that's nice. Now that now we can look at it from an hour by hour standpoint, and yeah, by by 3 o'clock in the morning, it's up near the Putnam Dutchess County line, and once we get past 3 a.m., it's flying northward. It's flying into Timothy Veltman land by about 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. So they're still saying that warm air on that gusty east-southeasterly wind is literally going to punch its way right up and through the Hudson Valley in the after midnight hours tonight.
The chairman, Scott Briller, is the first Super Chat tip jar hitter today. Thank you, Mr. Scott. Hope you've been staying safe, doing your work with COVID runs. Also, if he's watching this morning, just want to give a big hi and big hugs to Bill Uber, who's one of our regulars. He's been kind of floored for the last 2+ weeks. He's 16 days now into being ill from the virus, and we wish you speedy let's get you recovered, because you need to start, you have to get back on the chat board, Bill, and start moving around. But you were right when you said to me this morning, it's a good thing that it's not going to snow up in the eastern half of Long Island the way it may everywhere else. That's at least one thing. You obviously can't deal with that with what's going on, but get better fast. My question to Joe, let's go look in, if you would, New Jersey, because you're going to see that rain, snow, and eastern Pennsylvania, because you're going to see that rain, snow line, advance westward as well as northward.
Okay, just a moment, because I took that down for a second, the tropical tidbits thing down, but let's look then at the GFS. Now you're looking for you want the 32-degree line, or
excuse me,
freeze line.
In the meantime, I've got the U.S. radar with an emphasis on the southeast, so you can see the latest views of the echoes, which have actually started to push up into northern Virginia at the moment, and the signature on the radar is quite impressive, and also very heavy thunderstorms. We actually have some tornado warnings that are up in and around the Fort Myers area. You can see there's 2 of them there. Then it goes down to 1, and numerous severe thunderstorm warnings that are up from the East Coast, from the middle East Coast down into the southwestern part on the West Coast. So very busy from the standpoint of severe weather. So yeah, Joe, if you would just kind of take us through with the GFS. Do you need sharing capabilities, or you have sharing capabilities? Yeah, let me put the screen up. So yeah, so you go ahead. You can go ahead and share.
Okay, hang on. I'm just going to hang on. Here we go. Yeah, let's do this. All righty. So now what you're seeing on your screen, or what you will soon very quickly see, is the GFS. Now this is for 2 meters. We're talking about 6 feet off the ground. This is more or less the air temperature at the surface, and it is in Fahrenheit. And you could see the little dotted area right here. That's the 32-degree line. This is for 18Z. This is for 1 o'clock this afternoon. The projection, according to the GFS, which is only a couple hours away, and you could see that it runs from just south of Sandy Hook to just south of Wilmington, Delaware. So more or less, Joe, the north half of New Jersey is below freezing. The south half is above freezing. That, again, is the 32-degree line. And if we move things forward to 0Z, or 7 o'clock tonight, why isn't anything moving? Let's try this. There we go. You could see that by 7 o'clock tonight, the freeze line is just about across lower Westchester, and now covers about the upper third of New Jersey. Everywhere north of that line, it's cold. Everywhere south, it is warming up fast. Look at those wind barbs coming from the southeast, pushing that mild ocean air inland and across all of Long Island and most of the middle and southern part of New Jersey. You're above freezing, so you're not going to see very much, if any, frozen precipitation initially with this setup. Then as we get to 1 o'clock in the morning, 6Z, we have the freeze line. And again, the GFS is a little bit milder usually than the NAM, but you can see they have the freeze line already poking through my neck of the woods. and all the way up into Port Jervis. And that would suggest that the changeover will be happening across the northwestern part of New Jersey around 1 a.m. and has already taken place across much of the lower Hudson Valley. And when we get to 7 a.m., look where that freeze line is. It's all the way up here. That's north of Albany and across extreme southern Vermont and southern New Hampshire. So, Joe, if you take this at face value, as I said, that very mild air is literally going to punch right through the Hudson Valley and up along the Hudson River Valley during the overnight hours tonight into early tomorrow morning. And that would say that even places up toward Albany and Schenectady and Troy and into western sections of Massachusetts are going to be changing over in the after midnight and early morning hours of Monday morning.
By the way, how cold? What was your low this morning?
One.
Now I saw
1 degree at 7:07.
I don't know what the New York City low was. I saw at 5 a.m. I think the park was at 10. So I don't know if they bottomed there or if they wound up going down another degree or two. The Rochester.
Well, you said the Rochester.
The Rochester rule said
6.
said 6. So I don't know what the final low was. It's like I said, I didn't check, but maybe I'll take a look if I get a chance. And Donna Lavasora made an interesting observation this morning, I guess, with relationship to the cold. She actually says that she feels like a piece of frozen spinach, which I guess pretty well describes how cold it is. By the way, if you could switch back, so I could just want to punch up the radar. I just want to point out a couple of things. There actually is some ocean effect snow that's going on over parts of the New Jersey shore. It's a little bit hard to see. There's some you see the Fort Dix radar echoes, and oftentimes with the ocean effect snows in cases like this, they're so low. The tops are so low. I mean, they're basically under 2,000 feet or even 1,500 feet, and oftentimes the radar doesn't even pick them up. So I've had a few people tell me that they had some snow along the New Jersey shore this morning. And that makes sense because you've got this bitter cold air and you've got the warm ocean water kind of going up against it. And at least initially, the cold air is putting up a good fight and you get a little lift and you wind up with some snow. In the meantime, on the radar, as we said, we've got snow in central and western Virginia, snow in western North Carolina. I think Asheville has about 3 or 4 on the ground, and there are areas back here that already have higher amounts. I know from pictures that I saw in the mountains near me in northeast Georgia that elevations above 3,000 feet look like they have got every bit of 3 inches plus during the overnight. So now, again, waiting for the upper low. And you can see the rotation back here, back through central Tennessee. There's some fairly impressive precip there east of Nashville, not just east of Nashville. Now, I don't know if that's what form that's taking, but this is the upper low is centered down near the Alabama-Georgia border, about maybe half or 3/4 of the way down the state, and it's moving northeastward. So that whole thing is pivoting around. So a lot of these areas are actually seeing the snow changing over to snow from the southwest to the northeast, as I mentioned earlier. So those areas. That was the upper low continues to pivot. We're going to see the areas to the northeast change over. In the meantime, we also have some hefty precip moving into West Virginia and eastern Kentucky. Winter storm warnings all over the place, from western Maine, New Hampshire, most of Vermont, parts of east central and western Massachusetts. There's the mountain shadow in between. And that goes down the Connecticut River Valley. Also, winter storm warning in northwest Connecticut. The Catskills under a winter storm warning. In fact, winter storm warnings up pretty much everywhere east of the Hudson. I'm sorry, west of the Hudson, but east of the Hudson, you have winter weather advisories up. Again, there's probably going to be some shadowing going on. Northern New York, western and southwestern New York, the western half of Pennsylvania, into eastern Ohio, all winter storm warnings. That's where the jackpot zone is going to be. A foot plus snows there. West Virginia, most of western and central Virginia, western and central North Carolina, and then back down into Georgia, northeastern Alabama, winter storm warnings there, advisories surrounding that, the winter storm warnings from western and central Tennessee and eastern Kentucky. So very, very busy. Ice storm warnings, by the way, in north central North Carolina, well north of Columbia, but the advisories actually extend down south of Columbia, south of Atlanta, south and east of Raleigh-Durham. Some icing, and we're still going to see in that ice storm warning area probably ice accretions of up to a half an inch. So I mean, the other big story, Joe, maybe you could talk about this a little bit, is the fact that even though the coast is obviously going to be, this is a rain situation for them, it's going to be a big problem for wind and coastal flooding and beach erosion. Maybe it's only one high tide, but it may be a very high tide indeed, very late tonight and first thing Monday morning.
Well, yeah, take a look at I'm sharing right now the GOES image of the northeast sector. And the thing that intrigues me about this is that you could see the advance of the storm system. You could see how the clouds are advancing to the north and east. Here's the leading edge of the high cloud cover. But at the same time, the winds, which are now blowing from the east and southeast, are pushing some of this cloud cover in from the ocean. You could see how the clouds are advancing on Long Island here. And you're right, Joe, in the after midnight hours, from about, I'd say, midnight to 7 a.m., we're going to see the winds, especially along the Jersey Shore and the south shore of Long Island, and eventually the sound shore of Westchester and the coastal areas of Connecticut. They're going to be blowing hard and fast out of the east-southeast, probably at speeds of 40, maybe in excess of 50 miles per hour. That combined with the fact that tomorrow we have a full moon, and that full moon, by the way, whenever we have a full or a new moon, we have astronomically higher than normal or spring tides, not associated with the season. We call them spring tides because it comes from the German "de springe," which means to spring up. The tides seem to spring up higher at the time of new and full moon. So we're going to have astronomically higher than normal tides tomorrow, and especially in the couple of days after full moon. There's a tidal lag, and the highest tides actually don't coincide with full moon, but in the day or two after. But still, we're close enough to the full moon now with these strong east-southeasterly winds to probably induce the threat of coastal flooding, maybe moderate coastal flooding, and also maybe even some significant beach erosion, again, along the south shore of Long Island, maybe coastal Connecticut, and also along the Jersey shoreline. So you're right. It's probably going to be one high tide cycle in the overnight hours tonight because the winds beforehand are not going to be quite as strong. And the winds are actually going to turn into the southwest first thing in the morning tomorrow. So that should stop the onshore flow. But during the overnight hours tonight, it's going to be pretty tough for those who have high tides, especially in the after midnight hours, to deal with this because this could very well lead to very significant tidal flooding. Now, the one thing, if I'm looking for a good thing out of all of this, it's the fact that this is actually what is known as, popularly known as now in the last few years, a micro moon. Because the moon, the full moon, this full moon is coinciding very close to apogee. It's at its furthest point out in its orbit from the Earth. So at least in one way, shape, or form, it's not one of those situations where the moon is at perigee very close, because then the tides would be about 20 or 30% even higher than what we're expecting tonight. But the moon is at its furthest point, which means that the tides will be high, but they won't be quite as high as if the moon were closer in. So that's at least a good, the best thing I can look for in terms of a good thing is that the moon is not close and not really pulling those tides higher. But still, it is going to be a bad situation tonight. I know we've been talking about the snow and the ice and the rain situation as well. But don't forget the wind, because the winds for a while tonight are going to be rather strong, rather gusty. And yes, I don't want to say it, but I will. Those winds could very well lead to some local power outages. It could down a few trees or bring down a few power lines. And that's the last thing that you'd want in a storm situation like what we're going to see tonight. but that unfortunately has to be mentioned. The winds are going to be a significant factor as well.
Yeah, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but a lot of trees down here in the northern part of Georgia because we did have gusts of 50. Jay Warner hitting super chat. I think you might be new to the chat board in the show. Welcome, Jay. Thank you for hitting the tip jar. Joe and I most appreciate that. Thank you. And by the way, just speaking on what you were talking about, Joe, the Weather Service has gone to a coastal flood warning for coastal Connecticut, back to, I believe, southern Westchester and for Long Island for the morning high tide on Monday. Moderate to possibly pockets of major coastal flooding being forecast with up to 2.5, 3 feet of inundation. So just bear that in mind, folks, for those that you are in that area. Coastal flood advisories are up for the harbor, still up just with for the counties, the Jersey counties that surround New York Harbor, and also extending south along the New Jersey coastal counties to Delaware. But that may be due to tides coming in now because they're dealing with easterly winds. So they're probably having some minor flooding with some of the high tides. But just bear in mind that they may wind up going for the, some sort of coastal flood watch or coastal flood warning for this evening and tonight. So we'll just have to wait and see how that plays out. So why don't we take a look? You've unshared, so I can switch off here, and I'm going to bring up the NAM so we could do a little modeling here and take a look at what's happening from the model's perspective. And before we do that, Brandon Doherty hitting a super chat. Thank you, Brandon. Stay safe in Delaware. You had your big snow in Delaware, so it's pretty much all gone. And now, of course, you've got the wind and the rain to deal with. But again, thank you very much for hitting the super chat tip jar. So I'm just going to roll back on the NAM. We're going to start with the 500 millibar to watch this whole upper trough and how it how it's handling things here in the eastern part of the United States. And of course, we're looking at, this was Friday. We had a trough that moved out to the east, made that major storm that went to Nova Scotia, set the whole ball rolling for the next thing, the diving shortwave. Now here's the upper low moving across the south. And again, to emphasize those of you that are watching us from the areas in the south, that it's north of the track of the upper low for about 100 miles. If you want to put the upper low just kind of in the center of that circle there that you see. So it's probably right in there. And this was this morning at 7 a.m. on the Alabama-Mississippi border. So you're going to have your heaviest snow is going to fall in a band running about 100 or so miles to the north and to the north of the track of the upper low. And it starts to move east-northeast and then begins to pivot around to the northeast, moves over northeast Georgia and western South Carolina. What to watch for here is not just a change over to snow, but a lot of times this is a very intense upper air system. And I guarantee you that the model guidance is not going to pick up on some of the heavier bands of snow that are going to develop around this upper low. So I would anticipate that you're going to hear about some upside surprises here in some areas, particularly in elevations above 2,500 and 3,000 feet. That lifts up to the northeast. You can see there's a secondary trough that's coming down to the Great Lakes. It's instead of kicking this out to the northeast and keeping the upper low just offshore, which would have been wonderful for coastal snow lovers, instead, we're seeing that upper low lift up to the west. So that's why the jackpot zone here, again, is going to be western New York, western Pennsylvania, down into West Virginia, maybe even easternmost Ohio getting into it as well. And then, of course, it keeps on going, which means weather conditions start to improve later tomorrow. Now, with regards to how this all looks on the surface, so we wanted to at least give you both perspectives here. And let's just roll this back as the maps load. Again, I think when Joe talked about the foos before from the NAM, it looked like it was maybe a little colder and definitely a bit wetter. And that might buy an extra hour or so of snow, or maybe even a little bit more than that in areas north and west of the coast. And I can eyeball that off the NAM maps. I did notice that. You can see the snow area increasing down on the southwest side in the southeastern part of the U.S. And again, that's that upper low in play. The squall line in Florida we talked about, that's moving offshore this afternoon. The low is in eastern North Carolina. It's changed over to freezing rain in western Virginia, northeastward to just north and west of the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area. This is by 5 o'clock. Some snow into southernmost New Jersey or southwestern New Jersey, certainly into southern PA. I don't know how much of that's going to be aloft, though, because there is a lot of dry air around, so we'll have to see if that fights it for a while. But if we use the way the precip is lined up in terms of literal start times, I would say, Philadelphia probably between 5 and 6 o'clock for a start time. If you want to back it up, say Harrisburg about 4 o'clock, Philadelphia about 5 or 6 o'clock, New York City at around 7 or 8 o'clock. And you can see how fast the rain line moves up after that. By 10 o'clock, it's up in Albany, southwestern Mass, and through central Connecticut. And by 1 a.m., it's on the doorstep of Boston. And at this time, the southern edge of the precip is now moving out of Virginia and out of Maryland and Delaware. And by 3 or 4 a.m., it's coming to an end in southern Pennsylvania and southern New Jersey. By 7 a.m., there's a big line of what looks like heavy rain and maybe some thunderstorms that comes through New Jersey and New York City and Long Island and southern New England sometime between, starting at about 3 or 4 a.m. in New York City and then exiting Long Island at around 7 a.m. And then it's in southeastern New England from 7 to 10 a.m. When when that goes by, that's probably what you're going to blow away and get those wind gusts of 40 to 50 miles an hour. And who knows, there might be maybe a severe thunderstorm or two in the mix there.
Well, actually, Joe, I just shared again, and I have on the screen here the FGen, and this is for the NAM 12 kilometer. Now, this is for 700 millibars. I always like using 700 over 850. But you take a look at this. Now, this is at 2 o'clock in the morning. Look at this area of FGen or Omega that is just entering the New York metropolitan area. That is at 2 a.m. And then when we jump to 3 a.m., that cluster is like right over the tri-state area, and then rapidly by 4 a.m. lifts to the north of New York and is even lifting past me. So I think you're right. I think this zone here, this area of energy that will be passing through the tri-state area between 2 and 4 a.m., that is the time when we're going to be seeing the strongest winds, the heaviest intensity of precipitation. And yes, look at the way those contours are wrapped up a bit. I wouldn't be surprised if you were awakened by a rumble or two of thunder or saw some flashes of lightning. That really is going to be when everything, and that again, from 1 o'clock to 7 a.m. on the NAM Foos for LaGuardia, they have almost 1.25 inches of precipitation falling. And what's going to do it? That is going to do it. From 2 to 4 a.m., that is where it's really going to be pouring on down. And before then, well, there really isn't all that much in terms of energy. I know we're talking about, well, here, you can see that there seems to be at 10 o'clock this evening, there seems to be a band of energy, not tightly wound up, that's just passing north of New York. So maybe this is the initial shot that we get in terms of snow or rain or whatever precip you may get for the early hours of the evening. That moves quickly north. Then there's kind of like a lull period here, and then we just sit and wait for the next round of energy to come in after midnight, 2, 3, 4 a.m. Then that quickly lifts up, and then we get into a kind of a lull. Then that's when apparently aloft some cooler air moves in, and the atmosphere is going to be unstable enough so that even though the main push of wet weather precipitation is going to be by us, certainly by daybreak, it's going to be unstable enough. And again, notice the wind barbs from the southwest now that we'll probably see maybe a few lingering showers and maybe even a wet snowflake mixed in. But it'll be all but over, save for the leftovers during the day tomorrow. So again, Joe, I agree with you 100%. 2, 3, 4 a.m., that's when we're probably going to see the worst of it, at least right here in the immediate tri-state area.
Well, let me just run through a couple of things here, if we could, and then I'll bring up the snow forecast map. I just want to acknowledge we had a few super chat hits in the last 10 minutes, led by Tom Contino, who has hit the tip jar, Joe. Appreciates our tireless work and pray you and your property stay safe. Thank you. And Tom, we love having you here every night. And thank you, by the way, because I left you, I put that message up before the show started and you seem to be complying because I know you get tempted every once in a while, but I just want to give you a thank you. Diego, Salvatore Diego, hitting super chat not once, but twice. Thank you so much for that, Salvatore. Leon Probitsky giving a big thank you and hitting a super chat hit. Thank you very much. Forza Jersey hitting super chat. Be safe, everybody. He says, no disappointed snow fan here in New Jersey. That may very well be, but guess what? There'll be more chances down the road based on what I saw on the long range. And also we've got Frank Riccio, one of our regulars on the chat board. Thank you, Frank, very much for hitting super chat. Says, Joe, thanks, Joe and Joe, for your expert analysis. Hope the coast will see big snows next time. I'm telling you, from what I saw, I've been looking at I looked a little bit at the long range today, the European and the GFS. I don't care what it showed at the surface. The upper air is very suggestive. And I'll get into that in just a little bit. And we also have Mike McGuire hitting super chat, 5 inches from the front end thump. He's already up to 5 inches from the front end thump. Michael, you're down here, so you're probably in one of the mountains, I think, right? Heavy sleet and freezing rain now. So yeah, he's in the he's in the mountains in the southeast. So yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, I saw some of the numbers in a few other places. And Salvatore Diego hitting super chat for the 4th time. Most appreciated, Salvatore. Okay, so I wanted to show the snowfall forecast map, and at least from the standpoint of what it's showing right now, this is where it gets a little dicey. When you got to be careful when you look at these snowfall forecast maps on the digital weather, because what starts to happen is anything that's snow that's already fallen is kind of gets subtracted out. So I think that's what you're seeing in parts of Georgia, in parts of Alabama, for example, and even into South Carolina. So I'd be real careful with some of the numbers that are being put up. And I would also be very careful with some of the numbers being put up into Western North Carolina, because there's still a ton of time here with regards to that upper low. And as I said, upper lows love to surprise. Further north, as they're starting to get into the snows, the western mountains of Virginia, Johnny Questland, north and west of I-81, should do very well. And going into West Virginia on the other side, it's mostly about a half a foot being forecast up and down I-81. Probably those numbers are being held down because of a changeover to sleet and freezing rain. The Weather Service is punching up 2-inch amounts for Washington and Baltimore, higher amounts as you go northwest. Cut Pennsylvania in half, and you'll find that the eastern half, which is under a winter weather advisory, mostly under 6 inches, and in the vast majority actually under 4, and particularly under 4, the areas in southeastern Pennsylvania, which are basically a coating to 1 inch or so, while the western half is the jackpot zone with a foot plus in many locations. Pittsburgh may wind up with 11 or 12. Western New York, southwestern New York, and then go up into northeastern New York. There's a band there of 12 to 18. That makes total sense. Lesser amounts as you go further east. Heavy snows on the west side of the Hudson River, not so heavy on the east side of the Hudson River. And you get the same effects here, by the way, as you go through the Berkshires and on up into the mountains of Vermont, and the same for the mountains of New Hampshire and into Maine. Some big amounts in some places, lighter amounts in others. And then, of course, the snow cuts off just west of Boston, just west and northwest of Plymouth, just north of Providence, right along I-95. You know, the I-95 is probably going to be the line, where a coating starts, and then you go up from there. Several inches in northwest New Jersey, several to 4 in the Hudson Valley, and this is reflected by the fact that there are some winter weather advisories up in some areas. And then, of course, you see right along the immediate coast, it's all rain. And, of course, the issues with the coastal flooding and the strong winds. We've got wind advisories and high wind warnings up. High wind warnings for southeastern New England, and wind advisories for everybody else. And, of course, you coastal residents do, by all means, pay attention to what's going on with respect to coastal flooding developments, because New York's already gone to a warning for the high tide early Monday morning. So I haven't looked at the GFS today. Shall we do a little long range, because the weenies are, they're all getting excited here, with what the European gave over a foot for much of the coastal plain. For this next one, so I think it's probably a good idea that we take a look at it. Let's see.
Tropical Tidbits has been having trouble with the European.
Yes.
Yesterday still had the European up from the day before, and I see they have a little notation now about problems with the European today. Did you get the 0Z?
Pivotal has it. And by the way, Joe, give me 1 second. This could be getting exciting here. Hold on. Just want to check something. Okay, so at 11:44 a.m. Eastern time, or 16. I'll just take to 45. So 11:45 Eastern time, or 16:45 Greenwich Mean Time. I am now snowing here. So, and my temperature has dropped. I'm kind of jumping back and forth between 35 and 36. So the upper low approacheth. The cold air is mixing down to the surface, and I'm going to be very interested to see what I wind up with. I'll be disappointed.
Once again, Chiaffi does it again, folks. I mean, here we are. We're sitting here in cold, frigidly cold New York, Connecticut, Pennsylvania area. We've got the frigidity, and what's going to happen to us is we're going to see the temperatures go flying up tonight, and so whatever snow or freezing precipitation goes over to rain. Meanwhile, Mr. Chiaffi down in the deep south, down in Georgia way, and what is he doing? He's watching as the temperatures are going down, and as that happens, he's watching whatever liquid precipitation go over to snow, and he is setting himself up for a moderate amount of snow accumulation, whereas we up here are settling in for a little bit of snow and a lot of rain. I give up. I throw in the towel. Joe, you've had a completely upside down year. I should have gone down to where you are in the summertime to stay cool, since you never broke 90.
Right.
And I mean, like,
and had a lot.
What is it?
And had a lot of nights. And the nights were just about every night I was down in the low 60s, and in early August, I had a handful of days where I actually got down into the 50s. So yeah, it was. The summer was. Now, admittedly, it's not going to be like that every year. I mean, it can get pretty hot up here under heat wave conditions in the Southeast, but it didn't happen last year. I imagine it's not going to happen this coming year. I don't know what the overall pattern is going to look like, but yeah, it's been, like you said, it's been an upside down year, and hopefully, let it stay that way for as long as possible, please. Anyway, all right, so let's roll through the GFS to get an idea of what's going on here. This is the new GFS. I'm looking at this for the first time. So obviously, this is our first storm that's lifting up now. We've got this deep trough in the east, so we're going to turn colder and drier. Then we're going to moderate on Wednesday. And then here comes the next trough swinging into the east. So we're going to bring another cold front through here. And so Wednesday's the one day where temperatures go up. Then we're going to bring a front through, and we're going to start to chill down again. Now, what to watch is the back end of this. So this is going to be another one of these situations, and we've seen a lot of them over the course of the last year where we get these fronts to go through, and instead of just, marching along and they keep on going, the southern end winds up stalling, and we have to wait for another short wave to come around with a second wave to move along, and that's what the models are all hinting at. Now, there are things that we need to look for in terms of what's going on upstream, because with what's just happened with this storm, we saw the fact that we had 3 or 4 pieces running around and how the models changed over time. So it's really important that we pay attention to what's going on in the upstream pattern. Now, this is actually, I'm just looking at the upper air on the GFS. It's not a half bad looking shortwave, Joe, that moves eastward. I haven't looked at the surface. I don't know what it's doing, but it does have a neutral to almost slightly negative tilt to it as it moves along, which is kind of interesting. So let's see what the surface does. This is for Friday. That goes out, and now we have behind this is going to start the ball rolling to get what could be the coldest air mass, even colder maybe than what we just had, for the beginning of the week of Sunday, January 23rd. So it'll start to arrive, but particularly Monday into that week. Oh, look at this. I mean, this is really cold here, Joe. For that, look at this upper air for that week. I mean, that's cold, because the first shot pulls out and then rotates around. And I mean, you've got below normal heights everywhere. And there's another arm that comes down, another trough that comes down toward the end of that week, right on my birthday. So it's going to be cold everywhere in the east, if that's correct. And it's going to be very cold. Look at the upper low that dives down here on Sunday. That dives into upstate New York, goes over Pennsylvania. Let me see. I got to read the height line, because now I'm piqued my curiosity here. I can't see. It's too cold. It's too blue. I don't know if you can see it, Joe. It's too blue. I can't count the numbers. All right, there's 516. Hold on. 513, 510, 507, 504. You know what? It's not beyond the possibility, just speculating here, it's not beyond the possibility that upper low could dive a little bit further to the west and south. We'll have to see what's going on around it, but this is pretty impressive, if you ask me, certainly from the standpoint of cold. So now let's see what it does at the surface. Now, I would again caution, for the end of this week, try not to take the model too literally. I think it's more important to focus on what the upper air is saying at the moment, and again, a lot of working pieces to consider. So here's our first storm. It goes by. I'm not using the radar one here, folks. I'm using the one with the total precip and so we can see the thickness lines, the blue lines and the red lines to show us the relative warmth and cold.
Before you continue, I just want to say that I pulled up the North America zone on tropical tidbits, because I wanted to see where that cold air on January 24th is emanating from. It is coming directly, I want to stress that, directly from Great Slave Lake and Skag. And in case you were wondering what Skag is, Skag was for the longest time the part of North America where the coldest temperature in North America ever has been recorded. So I mean, this is coming from the ice box. This is about as close to I have not seen a cold air advection like this, the likes of this. If this, again, this is like a week in advance here, and it could change a bit. But if this were to be taken at face value, this is about as cold as I have seen it in a good long time. So I could see now why, Joe, last night we talked about the Climate Prediction Center, why they put in our area of the country a high probability of excessively cold weather. They are looking at this and saying, my God, this is it. I mean, this is finally the outbreak that we have not seen in a good long time. It's amazingly cold.
I want to acknowledge Bill Rogers He's on the chat board tonight, this morning, and he has hit the super chat tip jar, loving our enthusiasm for snows. Just be careful walking JJ later if the roads get treacherous. I absolutely listen. Before I even get into the woods, I got to get down. I got to get down a short flight of stairs off my deck, and it ices up almost on a nightly basis around here because of the low clouds, and then the temperatures fall down into the 20s and even the upper teens. So I promise I will be careful. So I just kind of, oh, I lost it. Let me bring it back up. I drew a few arrows here. This is Tuesday night into Wednesday morning when we're going to see temperatures moderate, but you can see the next front approaching with that 998 low sitting up near Lake Superior and the cold high that is starting to come down behind it. Now, this is for the end of the week. And there you have it. Now, the GFS doesn't do very much here at the surface, but it gets the idea of the front stalling just to our south. It kind of tries to hint at a wave, but because of how it's handling the trough, it really doesn't do much with it. And look, and that may very well be the case, okay? If we wind up seeing a situation where cold air just basically starts to come in and overwhelm, then there's not going to be much room for something to happen. But again, we're still on Sunday. We're talking about the end of the week and into the end of the week for something to happen. Then a second low develops off the southeast coast and moves out, and then we have a third low on Sunday crossing the Gulf states. And now this is Sunday the 23rd. Here's the Arctic, the real Arctic boundary that is back through the Great Lakes and moving into the northern plains. This low runs out ahead. We're seeing snow over by me again, up into the central Appalachians, kind of skims the coast, tries to, now here, Joe, I was talking about that upper low coming down. What if it's a little further west? Well, here's where the GFS takes this Gulf low and kind of lifts it up and deepens it as the bitter cold air is coming in at the same time. It's just offshore, and it does show snow right along the coastal plain. But if that trough is just a few degrees further to the left, this could be an interesting setup before that bitter cold air arrives. And we're looking at thicknesses that get down to, well, it's kind of less 510, 504. I would have thought they would have been a little bit colder with that upper low, but maybe because of that storm developing, it gets tempered a little bit. But very interesting setup here. There's a lot of potential, I think, in terms of what could happen in the longer term.
And of course, I'm just looking at the last night's European, and they have for late in the day or evening next Saturday, 23rd, 24th, they have a very potent looking low pressure system just to the south of Cape Cod and the islands. My goodness.
Yes.
That's pretty.
Right, and that's because of how the European handled the upper air last night. What are you looking at? What are you looking at on the European? If you can't see it on Tropical Tidbits.
Well, I can't. This is so. What is this? This is based upon. No, this is 0Z on the 16th.
No, why on Tropical Tidbits?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Let me.
The initial is 0Z on the 16th.
All right. Let me bring up the upper air then on the European, so we can take a look at how it handles all of this. By the way, there's a fair chance, by the way, that both the models could be wrong. Just so you know, the solution could be totally different. We were looking at you brought up the risk area for the risk area for next weekend that the WPC has, and when we looked at it yesterday, it sort of implied that there might be that it would be a phasing system rather than something that was going to come up from the south. But apparently the models are saying otherwise. See, now the European drops a really nice looking trough here into the eastern part of the United States. So this explains why. That's a nice looking cutoff south of Chicago, and then part of it drops back into Arkansas, into Texas, and part of it moves eastward. and then the whole thing just swings around and moves east. So again, uh, a different solution to what the GFS has. So we'll be curious to see what the European does with this later on today. But it did generate some rather generous snowfall
interesting
amounts.
Also, from what I see now, I'm sharing on my screen. I've got the 500 millibar.
All right, hang on. I'm going to let me switch you so you could everybody can see. Go ahead.
So I have the 500 millibar and mean sea level pressure from last night's European, and this is for Friday night, 7 p.m. 0Z Saturday, January 22nd. Here's the storm. The storm is now crossing through northern Florida, and look at the way the isobars are arranged. You would think that the storm and the overall flow, you would think the storm would take a track this way, well to the northeast and away from the coast. But now take a look at what it has for 24 hours later, and you could see, wham, as I said, just south of Cape Cod and the islands, they have a 9. What is that? I can't even see the numbers are so small. 986, a 986 low south of Cape Cod and the islands, and this is the upper flow, Joe. Rather overt, if I may add.
Yes, it is.
At 500. So apparently, instead of going this way, all of a sudden the storm dramatically interacts, I guess, with the upper air to swing and curve more to the north and northwest, at least to swing it around closer to the coastline. And then as we get into early next week, now remember, on the GFS, the flow was coming straight out of far northern and western Canada for Monday, the 25th. Well, if we look at the 25th, it's a totally different type of flow. I mean, it's not as dramatic or as dynamic as what the GFS has, and it doesn't seem to be. I mean, it's generally out of the northwest, but it's not the kind of flow that you saw on the GFS, which would bring, a full bore, frigidly cold air mass in. I mean, it's cold, but it's not with the GFS. So you're right. The upper air pattern is a bit different.
And you know what, Joe? That may have to do with the fact that the European has a stormier solution than the GFS does,
right?
Which leads to winds up leading to different outcomes with respect to later next week and going further on out into the long range.
Well, all we could say is, regardless, for all of you who were upset during December about all the disappointment, and some of you, again, even threw in the towel saying that's it, winter is over. I can assure you, and I'm sure Joe will agree with me, these final days of January are going to be pretty active and maybe even pretty exciting. So I think all of you got your wish. You're gonna see some interesting stuff here between now and the end of the month.
Yes. Mike DeCara says to me, am I enjoying the snow here? Yeah, you know what? It's nice. It really is nice, especially since I know in the back of my mind that it probably shouldn't get too out of hand. If I get a few inches, I can live with it, take a couple of nice pictures, and that will be that'll be a big plus. And yeah, and besides, I don't have a snow shovel, so I have no intention of.
Oh my God!
No, I have no snow shovel, and I have no intention of doing anything because I'm going to let the daytime sun here, if we get some sun tomorrow, take care of things for me. Okay, so I'm taking the lazy way out. Let's put it that way. I'm definitely taking the lazy way out.
Good luck, my man.
Yes, yes. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Jim Witt, who lives in Cold Spring, and he sold his house recently, but he had been in a home that overlooked the Hudson River. Beautiful thing. But in order to get there, you had to go climb. I mean, I think he lived on Heights Road or in Cold Spring. And again, he doesn't live there anymore. But I visited him at his home, and I said, Jim, what do you do when it snows? I mean, like, it's almost, like I would be almost impossible to get all the way up or come all the way down. And Jim had been already retired for a while. He said, "Where am I going to go?" And that's
Well,
basically, I think,
there's your
what
answer.
you're, yeah, that's it.
Uh,
I, on the other hand, have my snowblower at the ready. But again, I stressed this again yesterday, and I'll do it again now. For all of you listening right now in the tri-state area who get, let's say, I may pick up a couple of inches of snow here in Putnam Valley, but I mean, even if you get that little amount, 2 or maybe more, 3, 4 inches, you're going to have all that rain falling on top of that, and that is going to make for a slushy, mushy, very heavy. Joe, I may not even take the snowblower out. I may just say to heck with it. Let the warming temperatures try to get rid of it, because it is going to be almost impossible. And I've had this on more than one occasion in my life, to try to move snow that has been wetted down by heavy amount of rain.
oh,
It is going to be a very difficult
yeah,
thing to move it, from point A to point B.
yeah,
But that's what I think a lot of us are looking at for tomorrow morning.
yeah, you can't do that. Yeah, don't, because you know what? The back
I
becomes
do have a game plan, though. I do have a
okay.
game plan. Now you have a deck. You have a deck. And as you're well aware, I'm assuming your deck is made of wood,
Yes.
like mine. The first thing that snow will cling to, the first thing that ice will accrete on, will be wood. That's always the case. I told Renata last night, again this morning, my game plan is this: is I'm going to be out there at the ready with my snow brush and my snow shovel, and I'm going to just, because it is an SOB to get snow off that deck when it accumulates more than 2 or 3 inches. I mean, it's narrow, it's difficult. But I said I'm going to be out there every hour tonight when the snow comes down, just to get rid of the snow, so that when it finally changes over to rain, that's all I'm going to have to deal with is the rain, because that would be very, very hard to have snow and then the rain on top and increasing the weight on the deck. No, we're just gonna keep at it, clear it off hour by hour, so that this way, when it does change over, I'll only have to deal with rain, at least on the deck. On the driveway, that's another thing.
All right. Jacob Mack Mindfulness hits super chat and asks, can you take a look at the tornado watch for Miami? And Jacob, I've already put it up on the screen for you while we were, over the last couple of minutes. And indeed, SPC, the Storm Prediction Center, has put up a tornado watch. They actually put it up a couple of hours ago. The northern extent of the line is straddling the southern edge of Lake Okeechobee and covers the rest of southern Florida on both coasts. And they're listing this as a moderate risk of tornadoes, a low risk of EF2s, a low risk of severe wind, and a low risk of 65 knot plus. But again, the tornado watch is up, so they're thinking that there could be some spin ups. I'm sorry, somebody asked earlier about if this is not your typical front that's moving down to Florida. Well, I would just say that it's not typical to have a cold upper low as far south as it is moving across the Gulf states, and that has actually created the severe weather issues for Florida, and then for late today and tonight, and for eastern North Carolina. So yeah, it's not something that you see too often, because you need to get that upper low to be pretty far to the south, and it's not only pretty far to the south, but it's very vigorous. So here we have, with respect to this, the tornado watch, and I'm going to bring up. Let's bring up tornado HQ, so we can at least take a look at what's going on currently, because we already had 2 tornado warnings when we started the show and pulled up the radar in Southwest Florida. And in fact, right now we actually do have a tornado warning that is up for, now I don't it says a severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado was located over Fremd, F-R-E-M-D, Village, Paget Island, or over Pahokee, moving northeast at 35. So let me see from the statement. Now here it is on the close-up view. And I thought I opened up the link to get the specific the full warning text is. Okay, so this was issued from Weather Service in Miami. This is in northwestern Palm Beach County. In southeastern Florida, northwestern Palm Beach County. is where this is, and it's set to expire. This is issued at 11:45, so until 12:15. So it's got another 7 minutes to go. And from earlier today, we had a couple of expired, actually a few expired tornado warnings. Well, more than a few. Some of these are the same and they're just updated. So it's been very busy this morning across, in Florida with this line of storms moving on through. And I'll just bring up also the wide radar view. And oh, Joe, I got big flakes coming down now. It's beautiful outside. Oh,
there you go.
Very exciting. Now here's what it looks like on the on the radar view here from of the southeast, and you can get a good look at a lot of severe thunderstorm warnings are still running around with the tornado warning on the inside of that. So that very active line. It's going to move off in the next couple of hours, and then our attention is going to focus for severe weather. You're going to want to look at what's going on in eastern North Carolina late this afternoon and for tonight. The other thing I want to bring up real quick from SPC, which I noticed, is they actually, and they do this sometimes. They get into sometimes they'll get into discussions during winter storms and with respect to winter weather, and they actually put out something 10 minutes ago concerning winter and mixed precipitation in North Carolina and western North Carolina and southwestern Virginia, indicating that precipitation will be freezing rain or changing over to freezing rain this morning in these areas. Heavy snowfall rates exceeding 1 inch an hour will be possible in the southern Appalachians to the Virginia Piedmont, from western North Carolina into southern and central Virginia. Freezing rain or a changeover to freezing rain is expected for parts of northern South Carolina, northeastward into southeastern Virginia, blah, blah, blah. Let's see, water vapor imagery shows an upper level low moving eastward across the central Gulf Coast with divergent mid-level flow. A plume of mid-level moistures located across the Carolinas and Virginia. Widespread precipitation is ongoing. Le plume de la Brioski. Temperatures are currently below freezing. Much of the southern Appalachian Mountains where snow is being reported. A few locations have exceeded 1 inch an hour, and on it goes. So you get the idea here. So definitely, always, during winter storms, always a good idea, Joe. We got to remember this, because I forget. A good idea to check SPC, because they do put up those snow discussions sometimes in these winter storms to talk about places that are getting snow rates at 1 or maybe multiple inches per hour. So something always worth, good to be paying attention to. And it's a steady snow here with big flakes. I wouldn't call it, it's not moderate, but it's a pretty good light. So now I just got to wait for the temperatures to fall and watch the snow first accumulate on the colder surfaces. But I have dirt roads where I am, so everything here is a colder surface.
Right. And your deck.
And the deck.
On my deck, it always is, and the deck here always gets more snow than the driveway, and that's where the snows are going to accumulate. Now, I just mentioned the plumes, and I haven't even looked at the plumes. They did so lousy with the non-event we had a couple of weeks ago, but then they did magnificently with the storm that overperformed. So I'm just wondering, I'm just looking here on the plumes about what they're saying about tonight in terms of snow, and I'm checking here. They've got the heaviest snow coming our way, or the peak of the snow for White Plains now at 3Z. That would be 10 o'clock. And the total amount of snow, well, Joe, for White Plains, they are giving a grand total of snow tonight of 0.33 inches, a third of an inch of snow.
Well, you know what? That is Le Plumes saying that the warm air on the east on the easterly winds is going to be a big deal. Okay, and that may be coming in faster and screwing up the boundary layer a lot faster than normally. What you know what, Joe? Look, the bottom line is.
Whoa! Wait a minute.
Whoa.
At Poughkeepsie. Now, what did I say? A third of an inch for White Plains.
Yes.
At Poughkeepsie, Le Plume is indicating a much higher amount, 0.8 inches of snow.
Let them, let them be damp. They should be double salting and the roads. Maybe they should pre-plow.
So if you agree, if you take this at face value, listeners, and I know you're out there in the Hudson Valley and Putnam Valley too, where I live, if you take this at face value, less than an inch of snow before a changeover. Now, do I believe that?
I'll still go with rabbits. You might.
You might. I'll still say 2, maybe 3 inches. I'll play the devil's advocate here. I don't see much more than that. And but again, Joe, you're right. If the plumes are latching on to that very mild east-southeasterly wind off of the ocean, we may end up with less than an inch. We'll see.
Yep. And on that note, we're coming up on 12:15. So because of the fact that I lost power this morning for a couple of hours, but when I got up this morning, I prepped a pulled pork last night. So I put it in the oven at 5:30. Then, of course, I lose power for about 2 hours, and now the oven's back on. I'm trying to make sure I get some cooked food done,
yes,
just in case. But I've got.
You don't have a Chinese restaurant there, do you?
I do, but I'm not into Chinese food. It's not my thing. It's very funny.
MSG.
I would if it's around, if I'm invited somebody, if I'm invited over to somebody's house and they're having, they're going to be serving Chinese food, that's fine, and I'll eat it. But never out of these lips will you ever hear the words, I have a craving for Chinese food. It's just not my thing. It's just it's just not my thing. So, but like I said, that's
Let me just add, off of the Chinese food for a moment. Let me just say that at White Plains, I did check the wind situation. Now, this is not the surface wind. This is, I guess, the 10. Well, actually, it is close to 10, close to surface. It's the 10-meter wind. So that's what? That's like 30 feet above the ground or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, the peak wind is at around 9Z or 4 in the morning, which is exactly what we had said a little while ago in terms of the worst in terms of the wind, coming between 2 and 4. So they're pretty well on target for the wind being at its worst around 2, 3, 4 in the morning. And so that'll be the situation I'm sure many of us will be watching, especially those of you who are down by the coast, because this could be a rather serious situation in regard to let me quickly just look at Bridgeport, because Bridgeport is right on the south coast of Connecticut, and they too, they're doing the same thing. They're pushing up near 30. So sometime around 2, 3, 4 in the morning, you hear that wind howling. You'll know why.
By the way, I think I saw Ken DPW hitting a super chat, but I'm not sure, Joe. I kind of lost my, I can't see. It's basically, I can't see what's going on here with the super chat, but I think I saw him go by. So if there he is, Ken DPW, Michael McGuire. I remember we had him earlier, and also Frank Riccio. So pretty sure I got
and Jacob Mac Mindfulness.
Yes.
Oh, he was the one who was asked for the tornado watch.
Yes, he did. And thanks for by the way, Jacob, I noticed that you have Patreon. You went on Patreon and you signed up for my subscription site, and you did it like in two $1 increments. But if you just do the $2 one, you get access to everything that's on there, the stuff that's on there on the $2 tier. So just to let you know, okay, you might want to fix that to get bigger bang on your buck. Okay, that's pretty much it. What happened to the polls? Hold on, I gotta fix this. The polls are on there.
I'm starting to get hungry. between you talking about what you have in the oven, and now Christianopedia says hot sesame dumplings.
Well, that sounds nice. That sounds interesting.
Lovely.
Yeah, I got a pulled pork in the oven because I found a nice one at the store. It wasn't too big, and I'm in the process right now. It's like trying to solve a puzzle here. I'm trying to I have to eat various foods to figure out basically what bothers me and what doesn't with my stomach issues. So it's hit or miss. So far, sausages are off the list because they seem to bother me a little bit, and I have to limit my dairy to an extent. If I have a little bit too much milk and cheese, then I'm having a problem. But everything else so far is good, and I'm having to prepare food where I can't eat. Like I can't go to somebody's house to eat, and I have to be really careful if I go out to eat. I literally have to prepare the food and know exactly what I'm putting into it because it could be a spice, it could be an herb that I use, like rosemary or sage. It could be one of those things that winds up bothering me. So unless I know exactly what's going into the food that's being prepped, I'm not going to find out. So the poll today was who gets more snow from this storm, you or me? And I acknowledge that I already had an inch this morning, so I'm an inch ahead of you. And right now, Joe, we're at 61% say me, 39% say you. So if it's going to be me, I need to get going here and start getting the accumulation going outside with some of the bigger flakes that are coming down, but it's not exactly sticking yet. So I guess my temperature is still sitting at around 36 or 35.
Yeah, I'm just checking here because White Plains was 3 above this morning. They were 6 above yesterday morning for a low temperature. And I thought, well, maybe that's a possible record. No way. Yesterday, the record was 6 below in 1957. And on the 16th today, the record was 1 below, and that was in 1965. So no record at Westchester County Airport either yesterday or today. Pretty cold, but not cold enough for going into the record book.
Gotcha. All right. You know what? This has been a really busy week, so I will give you the choice. Do we do a show tomorrow night with a post-mortem on this, or do we take tomorrow night off and do a show on Tuesday night?
I think we could do it on Tuesday night. Wait a minute. Hold on for a second, Joe. I just want to make sure. I've got to check my schedule.
Yes.
What is Tuesday? Is the 18th? Tuesday's the 8th. Tuesday's the 18th.
Yes.
Oh, good. So no problem. I do have 2 library talks on the 19th and the 20th. So the 19th and the 20th, we're going to have to push it off to 8:30. But I don't have anything scheduled for tomorrow or the 18th, Tuesday. So we can go as is or as usual on Tuesday at 7:30. And yeah, let's take tomorrow off because I think you and I are going to be very busy here later today and especially overnight tonight. And God only knows if I have to do any shoveling tomorrow.
Okay, so before we end the show, we had one more super chat hit, and I just want to acknowledge that is from
Ari Mac.
Ari Mac, and he says, can you check out Northeast Jersey for the weather and if they're getting snow and how much? So what I've done is I didn't do it earlier, and I meant to do this. I did bring up this was my final call snow forecast map that I did last night. It's not a big change from what I did on my early call. I just kind of massaged numbers a little bit and moved some of the lines, but they're just essentially pretty much the same. So for Northeast Jersey, now the big problem here as far as snow is concerned is the fact that the wind is going to be coming in from the east. So, it's not like we're seeing the warm air come up from the south where you'd see the rain snow line creep from south to north across New Jersey. Instead, it's coming in from the east. So it's actually going to change in northeastern New Jersey before, pretty early. So I have the rain line running over western Long Island and just touching New York City. So I'm not really going for very much in northeastern New Jersey. I'm going for maybe an inch or two before a changeover. You can see where the 2-inch line is back maybe in eastern Passaic and down into Warren County, and then a 4-inch line in northwest New Jersey. But again, that east wind is going to be problematic. So the thing to watch for is, how much snow, does it snow for 30 minutes? Does it snow for a couple of hours? I would think that if you get some upside, let's just say if the cold air holds on a little bit longer, maybe at the most you could wind up with a couple of inches in northeastern New Jersey. I don't think it would be more than that because the rain snow line is going to be moving rather quickly. So it's going to have to do it in that window from, say, 8 o'clock or so when it starts up tonight till maybe 10 or 11. And then it's going to be changing over to sleet and rain very, very fast. So that's my never to be humble opinion when it comes to what you might see in northeastern New Jersey. So unless you shared and your map is up, and go ahead to put your final call.
I'm just going to simply say that in northern New Jersey, I think you should put the emphasis on the lower numbers. So if you live in this zone, northeast New Jersey, I'd say more closer to 1 as opposed to the 2. And in this part of New Jersey, closer to the 2 as opposed to the 4. Maybe Port Jervis. I know that at High Point State Park, the highest point in New Jersey is about 1,800 feet above sea level. So maybe up there, you might see something closer to 4 as opposed to the 2. But you can generally see that at least what I'm thinking about, Joe, and pretty close to what you're talking about, an inch or two before. And you know what? If the plumes are right, we may not even get the inch or two in northern New Jersey.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Okay. So look, no show tomorrow because you and I both need a break, and it's good to take a little bit of a breather. And we'll be back on Tuesday at the usual shopping time, which is 7:30 Eastern. So enjoy your afternoon. Enjoy the flakes wherever you are while they last. They'll last longer inland than at the coast. Watch for the strong winds and coastal flooding and beach erosion for coastal areas tonight into tomorrow morning, where winds and coastal flooding obviously going to be a big issue, possible moderate to pockets of possibly some major coastal flooding at the morning high tide. And Mr. Rayo, we'll see you on Tuesday.
Good luck.
Yes, and thank you by the way, all of you who hit the super chat tip jar today, most appreciated. So see you on Tuesday.
And 152 likes. Thank you for that as well.
Yes, thank you very much. Bye, everybody.